Hello, everyone. We're going to call meeting of the Sunderland School Committee to order at 6:03 p.m. on Tuesday, March 11th. This is our public hearing. And we've got 3 members in person and Luai is online. The first order of business is our public hearing. Turn it over to Shelley. Okay. I cannot share my screen. This year, I'm getting more organized, and I'm going to use a Gmail label for the budget documents that were just sent to us, so that I can find them more easily in the future. Ready? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through these first couple of slides pretty quickly because you all have heard this many times, but we do have quite a few folks watching online, but I think I'll just touch base quickly on how the budget is built and what that process looks like for anyone who is hearing this for the first time. So we have the goal of building a needs-based, student-centered, fiscally responsible budget while meeting level services. So we're replicating programs from the prior year, programs and staffing. Level services does not mean level funding. Level funding would mean that we have the exact same budget from the prior year. With level service, there's always an increase at a minimum due to wage increases for staff. We also take an analysis of supplemental funds, which includes grant and revolving accounts, and then we consider new needs and initiatives. The internal process with administration starts in late fall, October, November. January, school committee sees the first draft. February, we continue deliberations. February, you actually moved a budget forward to public hearing, which is slightly different than tonight, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go through as well. But this is our public hearing, and then in 2 weeks we will have a vote to adopt the budget, and then the town meeting where the budget will get finalized is April 25th. Budget drivers primarily relate to salaries and wages. Typically for a budget, benefits are also a significant growth. For Sunderland, it's minimal because the only benefits incorporated into the budget are those associated with central office, since the town covers benefits for all of our school-based employees. Special education is always a significant driver. You'll see that as we continue through the presentation as one of the things that's increasing our budget this year. Transportation, which we saw big growth last year, facilities, and then new initiatives. This slide here shows the various expense accounts. So school committee sees these expense codes on the monthly report that I send out. It's also how the budget is structured based on each of the different categories. These are set by DESE. They're considered function codes. There's administration, which is primarily superintendent's office, business office, and school committee. Anything with a 2000 code is instruction, teaching and learning, people services, which is primarily transportation, but also includes food service and the health office. Building related items are in the 4,000 category, benefits in 5,000, and then out of district placement, which can be another big impact to a budget, are in those 9,000 function codes. So if you have the line by line budget, those are the categories that you're going to see our expenditures fall into. So for FY26, we did put forward a budget in February to bring to public hearing that was slightly higher than what we're going to discuss tonight. Darius and I had presented to the select board a few weeks back. Our understanding is that the town is having some financial hardship this year. There are significant asks from many departments, and they're still trying to come up with a balanced budget to present at town meeting. Knowing that and coming back at administrative level, looking at some things that have changed since that February meeting, we're proposing here a smaller budget increase than what we talked about in February, which is a positive thing for the town. We are going to be able to help reduce our ask. It's a little bit backwards the way that it sort of happened. Typically, we would discuss it first, but to keep the process we did have that decision and discussion internally, and then sent you all the heads up that that was coming. So looking specifically at fiscal year 26, what does it cost to educate a Sunderland Elementary School student? All funds, which includes general fund, grants, and revolving funds, our budget is just over $4.2 million. General fund, which is what we're primarily going to talk about tonight, is just shy of $3.6 million, which includes a level service growth of $90,000, new requests of $38,000 for a total increase of 3.71 over fiscal year 25. Grants and revolving funds that supplement the budget are outlined here, just shy of about $700,000 in additional funding to help supplement and keep the general fund lower. What does that equate to for a per pupil cost? Based on 175 students in the current year, that's on October 1st enrollment. We're always looking at the prior year for enrollment and budget building. Our total cost at 175 students, including our school choice numbers, is about $24,000. You can see a pretty significant decline in enrollment. I gave you a snapshot here from 2020. Enrollment at that point, including school choice, was 223 students. So we have seen a significant decline. Residents have been a big factor. You can see that green bar on this chart that's sort of going up and down. We've flattened out a little bit from last year, but that has been a pretty big driver. With resident enrollment going down, our town will not receive a significant level of additional state aid in the Chapter 70 formula. As it's right now in the governor's budget, they will see less than $11,000 in new Chapter 70 aid, yet our general fund was growing by $128,000. You can see there really clearly that the taxpayers and the town have to pick up the most significant part of that budget growth. It's happening district-wide. It's not just relative to Sunderland. We are seeing that at all of the schools right now. So continuing to talk about enrollment, which leads into part of our decision to reduce the budget from that 5.43% that we had in February to where it stands today at 3.71, was after looking at the class composition and knowing some factors about staffing, that we could reduce the fourth grade, which was 2 sections of 21 total students. So one class was 11, one class was 10. We're slated to be 10 and 11. We're able to make a combination of that grade level into one section and have one teacher for fourth grade without eliminating someone's actual job. You know, that's always part of our discussion is, can we make any changes through attrition? It's the perfect time for us to look at things like this. So that is how we reduced the budget, was by eliminating a teaching position. We do have more residents projected for next year at 140. I think the current enrollment is 135 for residents. That's because of more resident kindergartners and pre-K as we anticipate those coming in. Our school choice numbers are going down by about 5 or 6 students as well. So that's something for us to just have on our mind, because as school choice decreases, our revenue decreases as well. And it is a supplemental fund for us. So what exactly changed in the $128,000 increase for this year in the budget? So we have a revolving fund adjustment. It was a combination of things, I think, primarily related to early childhood, where expenses have been exceeding revenues. We've had reserves to help cover those expenditures, and we're at a point now where the balance would be next to nothing, maybe only about $5,000 in that fund if we left all of the expenses there. So we moved over partial wages onto the general fund so that we could maintain some reserve balance. It's important to do that because if we had a student come in mid-year that is high needs and we have to provide transportation or other special education services that we don't currently have in the building, it gives us an opportunity to help fund those. So we never want to run our balance at zero in that fund. Out-of-district placement costs, this is, I mentioned, as one of the biggest drivers is special education. So we are seeing an increase for our out-of-district tuition for a current student next year of $22,000. We have wage increases, which are less because we are eliminating that one position. We are requesting $38,000 to fund a new IA, which is based on IEP needs for a student coming into district that we know will have a one-to-one per their IEP. And then $8,000 in non-wage expenses. That was for general supplies and materials, which is related to inflation. Everything is more expensive. And then $5,000 for an adjustment for the building maintenance fund. We do have the reduction of one teaching position, and then supplemental funds. So we are going to use our full rural aid allocation, which is just shy of a 2% budget offset for us. If we did not have rural aid, we'd be looking at 5+%. I've been saying everywhere the caveat that rural aid is based on state appropriation. It is subject to 9C cuts. It's not guaranteed money year to year, but it is its intended purpose to help offset budgets. So that's what we're going to use it for. The last piece that I want to talk about is the sick buyback, because if you remember back to our January conversation, the first look at the budget had us closer to 8 or 9% for a budget increase, and that it did include our obligation to pay out sick buyback for a retiree. The town has supported this on a separate warrant article in the past, so we're going to continue with that practice, pull this out, and ask them to fund it separately. We just want to publicly acknowledge, though, that it's not a reduction in the cost of what the town has to fund for school expenditures. They're just going to fund it with another funding source outside of the general fund. Everything there. I'm going to quickly fly through these slides.
Two questions. So with the money from the state, we don't know until late. So are we backfilling from what we got last year?
Exactly.
Just like we did.
Yep. So we have a practice internally, because you have to spend rural aid by June 30th, that we will pay expenditures that would normally be paid from school choice to save the school choice money, put those expenses on rural aid because there's no restrictions on how we spend it. So it's sort of just moving our different pots.
Right, you tell me every year, but now I think I'll remember 3 years in a row. And then because we're negotiating, and I should know this, we don't know compensation. Is that compensation for 26?
So we have a placeholder in the budget for wage increases, but contracts are not settled yet. We have not come to an agreement.
Okay. It won't until after the town votes the budget, right?
Well, we have another meeting tomorrow night, so.
Is there a deadline for it?
Great, so it's a good question.
It takes as long as it takes.
Right, it takes as long as it takes, but it's a good question, because we get to a point where we can't add to our budget.
Right.
So, and that basically that time period is right about now. So, in the sense of as we're finalizing our town budgets, we have a placeholder and a small amount of wiggle room. So, because we large wiggle room, you have to know that number prior. So, it makes it hard for the first year of the contract to change after we pass our budget or get our budget for us to adjust that. So that's
Is this kind of what happened? I don't know, we can tell another town, but Amherst had that problem. They negotiated a contract and they didn't get their negotiated contract until the year after because they didn't, maybe because of the budget. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of different angles on that. So if we we're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Because we have lots of teachers listening. I'm very hopeful tomorrow night. We'll have a very productive meeting. But let's say things went sideways and it didn't happen. You would then go into the next fiscal year based on the previous budget, based on the previous contract. And then part of the negotiation is whether or not you would do back pay to any increase in that contract. And that becomes a whole other thing that has to be negotiated. So it's in everyone's best interest to try to get it done in the same fiscal year. But it doesn't, it happens, I don't want to say it doesn't happen often, but it does happen that you don't get it done in the fiscal year. But I'm confident we will.
And there have been districts that settle higher than what's in their budget, which results in reallocation of funds or cuts of positions in order to make your budget. Anything else?
No, it's
okay,
thanks.
Great. Yeah, just feel free to stop me. I'm going to go quickly through the next slides. I just wanted to give you a visual of how the budget is made up, so budget composition. So almost 80% of expenses are related to teaching and learning, so that's educating students of Sunderland and surrounding towns.
Sorry, Sean, I'm just trying to follow. Which were the 5? I can't see that. Which are the 5 spreadsheets is this week? This right there? Okay, good. I got it. Thank you.
83% of the total budget is wages, and then the remaining $620,000 of non-wage expenses are more evenly spread out between each of those expense categories that we talked about earlier. Expenses include school-based and central office costs, Sunderland's portion of central office costs. So just to give you a visual in these charts, you can see in the orange, you're going to see repeat theme that anything related to instruction and educating students is the most significant part of the pie, as it should be. Our budgets are student-based and needs-based, so we're spending our money where we should be spending our money. You can see here salaries and wages. So instruction includes anyone related in the principal's office, teachers and IAs. Other expenditures are more spread out, although instruction still takes up the most significant part of the pie. Operations and maintenance and student services, which the green portion, that covers transportation. That's the biggest driver in that category. And central office, which I want to say is $340,000 roughly. Sunderland's share of central office expenses is primarily comprised of salaries and then some other minor expenses to cover supplies and materials and things along those lines. That is a roughly 9% of the general fund, the $340,000, and the central office expenses are determined based on a cost share percentage of current enrollment of all 5 schools. I think I only have a couple more slides here. It's a 19, so I think I downloaded it.
So right there, I think that's the one. The grants, I know you can't count on grants. Is that typically the 187, 877? Is that they're usually around 200,000?
It's going to be a little bit higher because of the rural aid. Sunderland does not fund the general budget with a significant portion of grant funds. Primarily, IDEA, which is a special education grant, is the most significant. We receive about $100,000 of IDEA funding, and that primarily covers wages. There's a little bit of Title I funding in Sunderland as well, but that is it, just those 3 grants. And then the revolving funds, that is a pretty typical amount. Usually in any of our supplemental funds, the only growth we see is related to salaries and wages year to year.
And while we're on that, those 2 grants, the IDEA and Title I, are the federal funding grants. So we're talking about if you were to stop federal funding to schools, those are federal funds. However, those grants are through acts of Congress, so I'm not sure they actually can shut those off. But they're constantly surprising us. But it's just when people are talking about how much federal funding do we receive, it's Title I and IDEA. It's just over, it'll be 130,000.
So federal funding falls under grants.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, but again, those are legislative grants. So I don't think that's actually in play. But people are asking those questions in the public. So
Sunderland does use other grants to supplement other areas, but we do not use them as an operational offset. So a lot of them are curriculum related. Laura will be able to get supplies and materials with them, or if we have special initiatives with IT or food service. So there are other grants. It's not the only amount of grant funding. It's just not any. I only demonstrate for you here what's connected to operating the school.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So just a little recap here on this slide, and then I'm happy to take more questions if you have them. So we're currently talking about a 3.71% or $128,000 increase over the prior year for a total budget of $4.2 million. I know that the select board had a meeting last night, and I think that there's still conversation happening about their funding. So I'm not sure if we want to have conversation about moving forward with this as it stands and wait to hear from select board, or do we have other work that we need to do to try to help support town finances?
I think that's a discussion for later in this meeting, right?
that's exactly what I'm saying. So right now we're in a public hearing portion, so the public can give us comment and feedback, and then under our business, we have the discussion of the budget, so we can get into how we want to move forward. You could technically have it here, but the public could be part of that conversation.
And then the last slide shows you historical data, just so you can see where the increase has landed for Sunderland. Sunderland has fluctuated much more than some of the other elementary schools. 2020 was the year we had an override that year in town, and then you can see various increases. Last year's 5.05% increase did include that significant percentage point for transportation, so we would have been only at 4.05. average in 6 budget cycles is 5.27.
So when you say it's different than other towns, in a better way, or?
Sunderland has been higher than our other districts, except for this year. This year, there's a couple of others that are coming in, if not right around the same or above. But historically, Sunderland has had the most change in their percentage points from year to year for various reasons. We've added staffing positions, we've had other revolving fund issues. So every school is different. We've just seen the most fluctuation in our increases here compared to some of the other schools.
Right, and we're kind of in a weird position. You get Deerfield is very big. Cowan Whately, single classrooms, each grade level, and then we're kind of hybrid. So we don't really have anything to compare to, right? We're just gonna push forward. I mean, because we don't have economies of scale like Deerfield, things can vary. Is that decent understanding? Or?
Yeah, I think it's fair. You're in between the two sizes. You're in between that single classroom grade level versus the multi-classroom grade level. And now we're getting more and more single classes. We're getting to that size. So we're kind of in that right in between. As we saw earlier this year, we had to add a classroom because we're just out at that bubble point. So it does fluctuate that.
And that impacts school choice as well, right? So when we have a single incoming kindergarten group, we just can't accept as many school choice students. And although we're at 2 kindergarten classes now, that's kind of after the fact. Kind of missed the opportunity for that because of the unexpected increase.
I mean, it is something that we have to continue to talk about as we go through budget processes with enrollment being stagnant or declining. That's always a question from the community is how is your budget continuing to grow? How are you continuing to add staff? And we can talk about meeting student needs, but there could become a point where we have to have some more challenging conversations about what class sizes look like and whether or not we have to make some changes. Which is why this year, it's a perfect opportunity knowing that we have a chance to reduce a teaching position without having to let someone go. So.
Right.
I do not have anything further unless you have questions.
I would like to invite, welcome, encourage the public to ask questions and make comments. This is the opportunity. This is our designated opportunity to get feedback from the public before we have our own discussion later and vote in a few weeks. We have no members of the public in person. Seems we have no questions or comments. Thank you very much, Shelley. We'll close the public hearing at 6:26 p.m. and proceed with our meeting agenda. Minutes of February 5th.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Any discussion? Because Luai's online, we have to do a roll call vote. Luai?
Yeah.
Amanda? Yeah. Joe? Jessica, yes. 4-0. Financial statement.
Warrants signed since the last meeting total 22 at $169,095.81. The budget is still in good shape. I'm watching closely what things look like. We did add the teacher this year, so that kindergarten line is overexpended. Currently, our special education transportation line is overexpended, but we're going to see some extraordinary circuit breaker relief. So I'm kind of just keeping an eye on things to see how they pan out and where we may be able to move funds around. Right now, I think we have about $200,000 remaining in the budget, so we're okay. But I'm watching really closely at this time of year as we start to see an increase in spending to spend our funds down. The one item that I did want to mention is on my desk this week is a Greenfield family has been deemed homeless by the state and they are residing in Sunderland. I think you've all heard this from me before that we are required to transport them to their home district. We are splitting the bill with Greenfield, but it will be an increased cost for us. estimating somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000. So I think we'll be fine and be able to cover everything, but it is a new expense that we haven't talked about. So I'll keep you updated as I learn.
And they do have a choice, though, right? They could choose to go to school here if they wanted to, right?
Yes.
Yes. Mostly they choose to go to their home.
Yeah, because their friends and teachers. So I get it.
Otherwise, I have nothing new for you on 25.
I think I need clarification on something. So you said we're applying our full rural aid to next year's budget, but I thought we were funding the extra kindergarten teacher with
Yeah,
rural aid.
That
Can
was
you
the
explain that?
original conversation, but after looking at the line by line, you'll see there's savings in several IA lines because I don't think you've had fully staffed IAs yet the entire year.
For a little while.
We can have.
So we have savings in school choice right now from IAs that are paid from school choice because of vacancies. And then we also have budget savings. I believe it's going to be enough to cover the $45,000 that we need for that kindergarten position.
Okay. Thank you.
There's going to be,
Not intentional.
no.
There was a cost to it. Yes, I understand.
And there's always some lines that have excess funds at the end of the year. Usually Ben gets to decide, well, we're going to paint the hallway or paint the gymnasium. We might not be able to tackle those projects this year, but I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. Sure. Any other questions? Thanks. Moving on to the principal's report.
Great. In an effort to uplift our school community, Sunderland students and staff recently completed a 2-week Look for the Good campaign. The project, which encourages everyone to connect with those they care about, kicked off with an assembly led by our 6th graders. That was the Monday we got back from February break. There are a few different components of the program, including a gratitude spots, which I gave you an example in the principal's report, a gratitude wall where students on a daily basis wrote something they were thankful for and on a sticky note, and it's stapled on the wall in our main hallway. You Matter letters and kindness cards. Additionally, as part of our morning announcements for the last 2 weeks, our 6th graders would give the whole student staff body something to think about and think about what they're appreciative for. Our incredible new school psychologist, Carolyn McBride, was the driving force behind bringing this to Sunderland. This past Friday, our PTO sponsored a visit from local author Prudence Marsh. Students visited our library with their buddy classrooms and were treated to a book reading of Pippa and the Lost Paintings. And this is about a squirrel creating paintings of her forest friends with her fluffy tail. Ms. Marsh discussed the writing process with students and highlighted the need to edit and revise one's work. Between our last school committee meeting and now, one of our Sunderland teachers was recognized for the Pioneer Valley Excellence in Teaching Award, and that was our 4th grade teacher, Jody Frazier. Jody is someone who's so passionate about teaching. She's collegial with her colleagues. She connects with her families, and overall, she's just a huge, wonderful, beautiful, general positive presence in our school. So congratulations to Jody, and it is of note that that recognition comes from
Harold
colleagues.
Grinspoon Foundation. Oh, you're saying.
Well, the Harold Grinspoon Foundation, but also colleagues nominating someone from the district. So, and that's celebrated towards the end of April with a dinner, a fancy dinner. And lastly, we have an assembly this next Monday. The Tanglewood Marionettes are returning to Sunderland for a Cinderella performance. And that is sponsored by the New Salem Academy of Trustees that we got a grant. Our PTO president, Harmony Laughlin, applied for a grant, and this was last year at this point, and it's fully funding the performance. So pretty cool. March 20th and 21st is new dismissal for caregiver teacher conferences. And then finally, starting on March 31st, we begin MCAS testing for grades 3 through 6, and that will take place throughout the months of April and May. Yeah. Questions?
Yeah, I just would note, I get it, I think it fits here. I was wondering when I was driving over, but the fact that the Center Elementary was able to host the basketball tournament and have host over 20 games or so, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all 4 of us, had kids involved, was amazing. The atmosphere, 200 plus people in there screaming and shouting, and they create a lot of community with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th and 6th grade friends watching each other play, and I thought it was just a wonderful opportunity that we're able to help do that. And note that Whately hosted some games too, but I thought also that the staff cleaning up, positive and happy and amazing. I've been doing this for 20 years, I say, what's it? No, I got it down. So
it's the 33rd straight year of the tournament, and it's a good way to celebrate and end the rec season for sure.
And I think it is a part of the school. I mean, teachers came and janitors are cleaning and principals coaching, school committees members coaching. But I thought, again, I think it was a really great opportunity to use the facility.
Questions?
Sounds like I should ask Harmony about the new Salem Academy trustees. I've never heard of that.
Neither had I, but just a lot of the programs that happen here are there's outside funding sources, and so we're appreciative of her efforts and her PTO's efforts in bringing it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any questions from Luai? No. Okay. Now we have public comments, general topics, which could include the budget if anybody's changed their mind. They have not. Okay. Moving on to our own discussion of the FY26 budget.
Yeah, so exactly what I said before, either we hold at this number or we continue conversation around further reductions and what that would look like, what our options are. I don't have a sense of the town's position.
Do we need to formally take a vote about that reduction that was already presented? We haven't voted on that yet. It's a development since our last meeting.
So you're going to put forward a number you're going to agree on the number you're going to bring forward to the vote the next meeting.
Really?
Which is the new number, right?
So no, the number, you have to agree on what you're going to bring next week. You're not voting that number, you're just agreeing that this is what we're going to do the next one. We're going to talk about one last time and then vote on it.
Okay.
Right, so what is that number, right? Is it the number in front of us now, or have you guys changed it? So right now, this is the number moving forward. So I guess you don't actually vote it, but you discuss it, and it's kind of like, it's assumed through conversations, this is the number moving forward.
I'm pretty amazed that you were able to do that. I mean, saw this 2 weeks ago and was concerned with the town that it was a little high, but now I think it's in a good place. I don't think it can do any better, and I know other budgets are higher than this, so this is not. I think you did great, putting it where it is. Well done.
So I guess it's the ongoing communication with the town, where they're able to get their other monies from, and then that's basically we're gonna need. I don't think we're ready to cut further without being told we have to. I guess would be the.
I met with Becky Torres, our town administrator, on Friday, and she sort of told me the town has about a $500,000 budget gap between revenues and budget requests. That was before we put in this almost $60,000 reduction from what our previous number had been. So it is a tough budget year in town. Joe, you were at the meeting with Select Board last night, right?
I did not go.
You didn't make it last night. I got an update later. I spent 35 minutes in the Zoom waiting room.
I couldn't get it either.
Never got it.
I was supposed to be. So I don't know what was going on with technology last night, but I couldn't get it. So, but I know roughly where they're, needed. And this was a great improvement. I don't know what they're going to do with the other budgets. They're all supposed to be cutting as well. Some things might not. Some people might not get what they wanted this year. like I said, I don't think you can do any better. I mean, this is cutting to the bone.
I don't have any further questions or feedback on the budget.
Yeah, I mean, the other part
Thank you for all the work you've done.
yeah, I mean, the hard part really for the budget is not so much Sunderland, but it's Sunderland's expense for Frontier. That's the big one that went up a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, so this seems very like in a good ballpark.
So we will move forward with 3.71% unless we hear otherwise, and we can
Just curious, what is,
continue discussion at the next meeting and make changes at the next meeting if needed before.
We can reduce it at the next meeting. We can never go up from tonight's number.
And you don't, well, the Sunderland needs, the town of Sunderland has their own internal deadlines for when they have to have their budget for the warrant.
Right.
But your deadline is whatever their budget for the warrant is, right?
Our meeting to vote on this budget is at the very end of the month.
Yeah,
Kind of
so it's pretty close.
I'm sure they were all coordinated in advance.
right, Chad, what is COLA this year for Massachusetts?
COLA for
Yeah,
Massachusetts,
cost of living adjustment.
like with
2%,
inflation.
3%,
I
yeah.
have no idea.
No,
Depends on whose number you're using.
right, no, that's, I mean, this is not far off from what it is, so.
Moving on to new business, we have to talk about the school calendar, which we will vote on at our joint meeting next month.
So, yep, the school calendar was sent out, so we do a first reading this month, just so you have a chance to look it over before we do that at the joint meeting next month. So that, you know, all your calendars have to be the same, because you're on the same transportation contract and association contract, so you kind of have to have the same start and finish dates and that kind of thing. So, you know, I give you this month in case it's hard to do at the joint meeting to make big changes and things like that. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know, and then maybe I can address them prior to the meeting, or I can help bring them to the attention of the full joint committee in April.
Again, just curiosity, you just named kind of the boundaries and the reason we have to have the calendars. What are some other things that go into account to looking at the calendar? Besides, you know, you have to have a certain number of days of school.
Right, so we look at, I mean, we build it off the previous year's calendar. So you have your general holidays and your breaks around those holidays. And then we have our professional development, parent-teacher conferences, those kind of things are in there as well. I mean, that's really what bases and then how do the dates align with, you know, the start of the school year? You know, we are a district that does like to get a few days in prior to the Labor Day weekend. I believe it's a good start and then a rest, especially for the little ones. So we try not to go more than 3 days in that first week. We've seen those 4 or 5 day weeks, you know, pre-K through 3 are done by day 4. It's just as you're getting the routines, whatnot. We have in the beginning of that calendar, we still have that extra long weekend for Labor Day. It's kind of turned into that Friday I call administrative day because all the administrators have been working with the previous 2 weeks. They're exhausted by then. But it does give that longer break, and the Teachers Association has to agree for us to go back before that final Wednesday, and they have already sent this calendar to them, and they agreed to go back a couple days earlier, and then there's a longer weekend there. So that's kind of, I want to say that longer weekend is relatively new in the sense of it started 5 years ago or so. I think we kind of knew. So, but that's kind of the only thing outside of what every other district is doing. Like a lot of all these calendars are shared with other districts. We're trying to figure out, you know, when you're doing the half day before the holiday break in December, when are you going to do, you know, those kind of things. But everything else is, Thanksgiving is always the same. You know, that kind of thing. So.
Try not to have a Monday as the last day of school. Do you try to do that too?
Snow days.
We use
I
snow
can't
days.
control that, but try not to have it in the set schedule.
Yeah. I mean, if we ended on a Monday, I would go with it because we have at least one snow day.
Right.
You know, you try not to end on Thursday because you're going to have 1 or 2 snow days, and then nothing worse if you have to come back for a Monday, which is almost a protest day for families. So we've had to do that before. We had to come back like on a Monday, and then attendance is very low, especially at the secondary. I would say at the elementary, it's a half day of school, and it's a lot of fun, so a lot of kids are still going if they're not. The other problem running to camp start, we'll put down deposits for camps, and they're like, I'm going to put money down, they're not for camps. Yeah, so those are all the different things. We do end early compared to some of the districts around us who may have more professional development days. So we do have less professional development days than other districts. Days completely, we have more the early release, the target points, but not days. So.
Very good, thanks.
Luai, any questions or comments?
No.
Thank you. Moving on to talking about the school committee meeting calendar, which is not really settled yet.
Right. So basically, the calendar I sent out has our tentative dates for committee meetings. Basically, you can set your own calendar for a committee, but you have to pay attention to where everybody else is doing, because if you want Shelley and I to attend the meetings, right? And so I say that because technically we don't have to attend your meetings, but you know what I mean? In the sense of like, if you wanted to have a meeting, discuss certain things, but of course we do. I also included, just to have a general idea of the amount of nights that we are out at other places, because sometimes with the 5 districts, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing in the sense of, oh, you were there, that kind of stuff. So it just kind of gives you an idea when we say we're looking at trying to find ways to consolidate meetings on certain evenings. Just kind of gives you that kind of picture. I do have a meeting, or we have a meeting with the chairs on Thursday at 5 to look at the schedule a little deeper and see what tweaks we can do to reduce the number of meeting nights. We understand there's got to be the meetings, but then the question is number of nights away from family and that kind of thing. We can reduce that, still keeping. I still want to make sure our product is good. And you guys are getting what you need, and the public's getting what they need. But there has been some. I mean, like October, I go to 5 meetings and say the same thing at 5 meetings, besides give a different financial number. And so, if we bring some like school district, 2 elementary school districts together, we also said it might be. That's one of the ideas that we're floating out there. We also said that might be interesting to hear other people's school reports and getting an idea of what's going on in the schools. Just kind of know what our neighbors are doing, and it kind of expands our.
I like it. I mean, it falls into kind of the mentoring program that was started last year. We have a mentor from a different district, or different school. I mean, that kind of. I like to hear what's going on in other places, so it's helpful.
Yeah, because each school, while we do a lot of things the same, each school has its own unique things that it's doing and its own character and culture. While there's a lot of things that are similar, each school's different.
Well, but things like our open house where we take pictures of every family. I mean, I told that to some other families at other schools, like, wow, Conway Whately should be able to do that, and they're small. I mean, so we never thought of it. Sure. And our book read that we do with our school council. I mean, some people don't hear these things, so I think it's great. And I know there's stuff that goes on at Conway Whately that I have no idea about, and then I hear about it, or I go to their gym, and then somebody, oh, look at that, that's cool. So I would support a few of those if you guys can figure out a way to do it. And then as far as YouTube being able to go to one place less, 2 places less.
Yep. So anyways, we'll discuss that on Thursday, and hopefully we'll have something in place for the joint meeting. And technically, you don't need 2 readings of those things. But I'm just kind of saying that out loud, or we can waive it.
Thank you. We have a policy, first reading policy, education to access, student privacy, and immigration enforcement.
So what happened with this is that this is the policy, the immigration policy that about enforcement of immigration at schools that was brought before you first time, just kind of in general draft. From there, I created another draft, and then that draft went to the policy subcommittee. Policy subcommittee kind of came up with the concern that everybody agrees that we need to protect students' rights while they're at school and under our care. The point of disagreement about what happens when immigration agents are at the front door of the school. Should they be allowed to come into the building to meet with administration? Should they be told to stay outside? Could they meet somewhere else? Our current policy, because it affects the elementary schools, that all warrants and paperwork of that nature are processed through the central office. Central office is at Frontier, so you're just taking them out of one building and sending them to another building. So there was much conversation at Frontier, and where it landed was, can we go back and look at it again? Can there be a third-party location where they can meet off-campus grounds, so that's not being, discussions are not happening in a way it would disrupt the school day, because we are up front, kids are looking out the windows and that kind of stuff can be disrupted. So I did have we have our 4 times a year we do our 4-town safety meeting. It worked perfectly that the same week I had a meeting with all the local police, state police, sheriff's office, and fire departments and ambulance services. We all come together. We talk about different issues with the school. I keep on reminding people that also the public hears as well, that we do these ongoing safety meetings, not just when something happens. We're trying to be proactive on that. But it just so happened it was 2 days later, so I did bring it up there, and Chief Pacher from Deerfield said, Deerfield Police Station is open every day. The school's open, and he'd be happy to host as a third-party site to have those meetings. So the latest policy is in this packet. I also sent it to you during this meeting because I forgot I got it in the packet in time. I got it in the packet in time. But basically, the big language change that you would direct immigration officials to meet at the Deerfield Police Station. Even when they come to Sunderland, we ask them to go there because that is, it's just down the street from the superintendent's office, and that's where I would meet said officials, officers, agents, whatever comes our way. So you were the first committee to review this because you were later in the month. It went to Frontier for their first read. It got kind of rejected, and said go make some adjustments. But I made adjustments to it, and now you're the first committee to actually see it as a first read document.
I do really appreciate that solution, which seems better than either of the first 2 that we discussed the first time. This is a silly policy question, so I'm looking at the new policy, which gives the address of the Deerfield Police Department. Aren't they talking about tearing down that building and building a new one in the next few years?
We'd have to update it.
We'll just have to update this.
I threw it in there in case someone was looking at the policy and wanted to know where they were supposed to go. Like I was just kind of.
We'll just need to remember to update it.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate the thought and care that has gone into this and into protecting members of our community. Any other questions or discussion? Blue eye? Okay. Thank you. We're getting to the end here. Reports from the committee or chair. I've been doing rural schools committee work all the time. I'm supporting other school committee members from other rural school committees when they meet with their state senators and state representatives. Maura Healy put in her budget that rural aid should be level funded next year, getting the same amount, which is roughly only about a quarter of what it should be based on the needs of rural schools. So we are really trying to put pressure on state representatives because they go next in the budget process to increase that number in their budget. Historically, the Massachusetts Senate has always made the biggest jump. So we're trying to push that forward because our needs are much greater than how we are being funded, and we are, starting to talk about the possibility of needing to sue because of the lack of equity, and that rural schools are really being left behind, and rural towns are being left to pick up the tab and stretch all of our other resources much too thin. So that's been keeping me busy. Any other members have reports?
I mean, I was just gonna. The collaborative has a pretty good looking workshop that you know the keynote speaker. You've gone to see it. It's transforming social justice in education. It's on the 29th of March. It's a Saturday. But I was wondering, do the superintendent or principals get the list of the collaborative professional development? Yeah. Pretty often.
They send newsletters to our staff as well.
All staff.
To us and the staff regarding the different offerings.
Do you do a bulletin board or anything, or just if they see it?
We shoot it out via email.
Yeah. do we ever take advantage of it? And there's usually an extra charge. Right? You know, right? If you're a member, you still pay extra for the PD.
But it's a lower rate.
You know, right? Have we taken advantage of the collaborative PDs?
Yeah, various times.
It's usually more specialized ones in the sense of we do a lot of internal, obviously, PD, and we bring in people who work with us. So sometimes we've contracted out the collaborative to bring in some of that, but also if you're working on specific needs, these kinds of things have workshops that do specific needs. Teachers will sign up for.
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting since I reported on the last time, so I'll wait for the next one. I'm just curious about conferences, because I get them all the time too.
I have nothing to report. Lou, you want to loop us in on anything?
I don't have any updates. Thank you.
The superintendent's report.
No report.
No report. All right, and then we are going to go into executive session. I don't think we have a separate meet link for executive session tonight, right? So we're gonna have to ask everybody else to.
I will create one and send it to him.
Okay, he's gonna work on that while we do
He's
our
quick in the ball.
vote into executive session. So we are, I'm going to be looking for a motion to enter executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, teachers and instructional assistants, and this will have to be a roll call vote. Do I have a motion?
I will motion.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. So we will not be returning to public session. We will be adjourning from executive session. So effectively, the meeting is ending for the public now. Lua, would you like to enter executive session?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yes.
Jessica, yes. Thank you, everybody. So we are entering executive session at 6:55.